All right, I'm going to do a quick review of the lesson, 2.10's lesson. So we're talking about volume and surface area. So we've been talking about surface area, which is looking at covering a figure, whereas volume now is looking about filling or looking at the capacity of a figure. So we want to look at the measurements that would go with volume and those that relate to surface area. And then we're going to also make sure that you can figure out if I have one figure, you can figure out both the surface area and the volume of that figure. All right. So let's first just talk about volume. So volume is the amount of space that something takes up, okay, or its capacity. So a lot of times you guys have been talking about capacity. It's dealing with like cups and pints and quarts and gallons and liters, all liquid, okay, all liquid. So liquid things is probably what you were looking at in elementary school. But now we're looking at filling like a rectangular prism with something or a cylinder. So those kind of units are indicated with a cubed unit. So anything to the third power. And the reason we're looking at a third power is because when we're talking about volume, we're looking at length, we're looking at width, and we're looking at height. So we're looking at 3 different dimensions, length, width, and height. So that's why your answer will be to the third power, okay? It's going to be cubed units, okay? All right, so let's just go back really quick and review the units. Let's look at the units. So when we first started talking, probably in elementary school, you guys were just looking at one-dimensional things, like just length. So you would measure things. So you could measure things in feet, in yards, in inches, in centimeters, and so miles. There's a lot of different ones. So that's just one-dimensional. Okay, so if I were measuring something with a ruler, I would say it's 5 inches, or if I were looking at a yardstick, 2.5 yards. Okay, that's one-dimensional. Okay, perimeter is also something that we're looking at with just one-dimensional. So perimeter is just like the distance around something. Okay. Now we've been talking about area. So we first started talking about really early in the year, we looked at the area of a rectangle and a triangle and a parallelogram, and even got to a trapezoid. Okay, so that's looking at two-dimensional. It's looking at length and it's looking at width. Okay, it's looking at length and width. That is the amount of space that something covers or it takes up. Like in real life things, like if I were going to put hardwood floors down in my room, I would need to know the area of my living room because I need to know the length and the width. I need to know what it covers. Okay, so anytime I'm dealing with area, your units are going to be squared or to the second power, and that's because I'm looking at length and width. Okay, that's why it's to the second power. Okay, we also looked at surface area, which surface area is looking at the area of all of the face, which is a 3-dimensional shape, but it's all the different faces. Okay, surface area ends up taking a lot of time because it's a lot of different faces that we're looking at. Okay. All right, so today we're looking at volume. So volume is looking at a 3-dimensional shape, and we're looking at capacity, which is like liquid. So cups, pints, quarts, gallons, but it's also like filling up something. Like if we're looking at a rectangular prism here, we're looking at length, width, and height. Sorry, that's my W, width. Okay, this is why your answers can also be cubed or to the third power. Okay, if I'm looking at like a rectangular prism, it's very easy. The formula is simply length times width. Oops, sorry, my W's don't want to happen. Times height. Okay, you're going to find that volume is very easy to figure out. Okay, so let's do an example. Let's do an example. So if I have this one, so again, volume equals length times width times height. Okay, so all I have to do is volume equals length, that's 20, times width times height. Now, because we're multiplying, it really doesn't matter the order in which we multiply. We're just multiplying length, width, and height, okay? So at this point, then I would grab my calculator, okay? I'd grab my calculator and I'd say 20 times 12 times 15, and that equals 3,600. Now, it's volume, so I put the units, and then I put it to the third power because we looked at length, width, and height. So the volume equals 3,600 cubic millimeters, okay? All right, here's one for you to try. All right, I want you to try this one, pause the video, and come back when you have your answer. Okay? All right, check your answer. Okay, so it was length times width times height, so 360 cubic centimeters. Okay, so that's the new thing today, looking at the units that go with surface area and the units that go with volume, and then also figuring out the volume of like a rectangular prism. All right, now we're kind of putting it all together. Okay, so we're going to do both volume and surface area together. So we've looked at volume, so how length, width, and height, that's how we do. Okay, we just go length times width times height. Surface area, remember that is the sum of all of the area of the faces. This is the one that takes a little bit of time. Okay, so here is an example, okay, of how to find the surface area. We've been doing that, but if you need that example, go back and look at it. So if you look at this one, this is 6 by 7. There's a 6 by 7, that's the yellow face in front of you. Okay, there's a 6 by 4, which is the blue one right here, blue face, and 4 by 7, which is that orange one up here at the top. The reason I'm multiplying it by 2 is because it always has a matching face on the back. Okay. If you look at this one here, this is a square pyramid. So I have one square, and I have 4 triangles. Okay, so I find the square, that's just 10 by 10, which is 100. My triangle, the base is 10 by 12, but remember the triangle formula, it's base times height. Triangle formula is base times height divide by 2. Don't forget to do that. Okay, so base times height divide by 2 is 60. But I'm multiplying that by 4 because I have 4 triangles, okay? All right, so let's do an example. So I'm gonna figure out both the volume and the surface area of this rectangular prism, okay? So volume and surface area, okay? Now, I'm gonna do volume first because volume is easy, so why not do it first? So length times width times height, okay? Oops, I should actually do it. Length times width times height. Okay, so multiply that out. I'm going to do this one first because that gives me 10 times 8. So volume would be 80 centimeters cubed, okay, or 80 cubic centimeters. Okay, now I'm going to do surface area. Okay, this one's the one that takes a little bit of time. So I've got my lengths are 8, 5, and 2. So I've got my 8 by 5, that would be, this is 8 by 5. So 8 by 5 is 40, okay? But there's 2 of them, so I'm going to multiply by 2. So that gives me 80, okay? Then there is the 8 by 2. So here is my 8 by 2, which is going to be the top layer, 8 by 2. So that's 16. But the top, there's also the bottom, which is not showing. That's why I'm going to multiply it by 2. So that gives me 32. And the one I've not done is my 5 by 2 face, which is this one right here at the front, 5 by 2. So 5 by 2 equals 10. But there's 2 of them because this one here is back in the back. So that's 20. Okay, make sure you line these up correctly and then it should add up easily. So I'm going to add them together. So that's 2, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 132. It's centimeters and it's area, so it's squared. Okay? All right, so that is a review of today's lesson. If you have any questions, let us know, okay? Remember, the big takeaways from today is that volume fills a space, whereas surface area covers a space. Volume, most likely, we're looking at units cubed, and surface area, we're looking at units squared, okay? All right, have a great day. If you have any questions, let us know.